Hello everyone and welcome to episode 39 of my Human Mage playthrough. Today we are continuing our quests here in Hillsbrad Foothills and we're going to be going back into the Arathi Highlands where we will be doing quests there. Today I wanted to continue working on the quest chain of a new plague, and I'm basically just going to be walking all the way around Hillsbrad through Arathi Highlands looking for the Forsaken Courier, and then we're going to do the rest of that quest chain. But while we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Forsaken, and I'm basically just going to be reading from the wiki page here with like a quick little extra bit of information, is that the Forsaken are one of the 4 Horde races that we can play in this game. So the Horde is the other faction to the Alliance, and the Undead is the technical term for like what you select in a character creation. The Forsaken are one of the 4 races that you can play, and their starting area and like their early zones and stuff are all here around Lordaeron and in Lordaeron, as we've been talking about since we've been here. And to read from the Wikipedia page, the Undead Forsaken, or simply the Forsaken or Undead, are a race and a faction of intelligent undead who broke away from the Scourge and took control of much of the kingdom of Lordaeron, destroyed during the Third War by the Death Knight Arthas Menethil. During the Third War, the once glorious capital of Lordaeron, capital city, was decimated by a Scourge army under the command of Prince Arthas Menethil. Death offered no escape for the scores of humans killed during the Lich King's campaign to scour the living from Lordaeron. Instead, the kingdom's fallen were risen into undeath as Scourge minions and forced to wage an unholy war against everything and everyone that they once held dear. In the wake of Illidan's failed attempt to melt the icy continent of Northrend, the powerful energies possessed by the Lich King inside his frozen throne slowly began to decay. Inexorably, this resulted in a partial loss of control of the more distant Scourge forces. The result was that many undead under the Lich King's mental domination had their conscience well restored. Their spirits and memories were somehow returned to their undead bodies. Even the Lich King's champion, Arthas, began to weaken as the Lich King's power waned. Arthas the Death Knight and his lieutenant Kel'Thuzad the Lich were suddenly thrust into an undead civil war. Still fanatically loyal to the Lich King, Arthas heeded the call of his master and returned to Northrend as Illidan launched his second attempt to destroy the Lich King directly. Arthas left Kel'Thuzad in command of his forces when he departed. Lady Sylvanas Windrunner rallied half of the standing undead forces in Lordaeron and staged a coup for control over the undead empire. With their leaders' sharp cunning and the assistance of their banshees, the undead forcibly coerced a number of lingering forces in Lordaeron to fight in their battle with them, such as gnolls, bandits, and ogres. First, the Dreadlord Varimathras fell to the Dark Lady and swiftly sold his loyalty to Lady Sylvanas in return for sparing him. With Varimathras' assistance, the undead forces successfully deposed the leadership of Deathrock and his army, allying with the considerable forces of the mind-controlled Grand Marshal Garithos in order to free Lordaeron from the control of the remaining Dreadlord, Balnazar. Garithos, though despising non-humans, joined forces with the undead and their inhuman allies to this end. Lady Sylvanas promised to leave Lordaeron to his jurisdiction after the battle was won, despite herself never having any intention to respect their pact, and together with their new allies, the undead marched to end Balnazar. With their combined forces, the undead and the Alliance resistance dismantled the final bastion of the Dreadlord's power in Lordaeron, and Varimathras personally destroyed his Nathrezim brother. No sooner had Garithos demanded that the Forsaken leave the land than Sylvanas promised when she turned on him and executed the human leader, claiming the ruins of Lordaeron for the free-willed undead instead. With her immediate enemies dealt with and the ruins of Lordaeron firmly in her hands, Lady Sylvanas proclaimed her faction of self-aware undead as the Forsaken, and resolved to slaughter anyone who would dare stand in the way of their dominion. Following this, Queen Sylvanas and the Forsaken claimed the Undercity as their own and completed the winding network of catacombs and crypts that the Scourge had begun constructing. Today, rivers of poisonous sludge flow through all avenues of the vast Undercity. The toxic fumes and fetid odors permeating every corner of the stronghold have made it a place almost unbearable for the living members of the Horde. Yet for Sylvanas and her cursed followers, the Undercity has become a much-needed refuge in a world where her kind is still feared and hunted. While the Forsaken had claimed a base of power, their hold on Lordaeron was tenuous at best. To this end, the Dark Lady looked to finding allies. Led by the Banshee Queen Sylvanas, the Forsaken were an undead faction that split violently with the Scourge during the Third War. Sylvanas worked to ensure that the damned, such as herself, would have a home free from threats by the living. As a means to further her own goals and protect her budding nation, Sylvanas sent emissaries to various factions in search of allies. The kind-hearted Tauren of Thunderbluff proved to be the most promising contact. Specifically, Archdruid Hamul Runetotem saw the potential for redemption in Sylvanas' people, even though he was fully aware of the Forsaken's sinister nature. Knowing that no human agency would ever give them shelter or aid against the Scourge, now their hated enemy, they turned to the savage Horde, based across the sea in the distant land of Kalimdor, for assistance. To convince the Horde to accept the Forsaken into its alliance, the undead ambassadors claimed that they merely sought a cure for their degenerative condition, which they said only the powers of shamanism and the life-giving energies of the earth could provide. In exchange for this healing aid, the Forsaken vowed to support the Horde in all of its ventures throughout Lordaeron and Azeroth. Magatha Grimtotem also claims she merely wanted to aid the Forsaken in their quest of finding a path back to being human, and was thus one of the prominent proponents for the alliance between the Tauren and the Forsaken. Having done battle with the undead on many occasions, Orc War Chief Thrall and Tauren Chieftain Cairn Bloodhoof, the Horde were immediately suspicious of the Forsaken's motives. However, due to growing political tensions, the warriors acquiesced to a council of sages known as the Earthen Ring. The council argued that it was the Horde's duty to aid the Forsaken, who wrestled with inner demons just as the Orcs had for generations. Thus, the Tauren convinced War Chief Thrall, despite his misgivings, to forge an alliance of convenience between the Forsaken and the Horde. In the end, the Forsaken's chances of victory against the Lich King were bolstered, while the Horde gained an invaluable foothold in the Eastern Kingdoms. Though Thrawn and Cairn secretly suspect the worst, it remains to be seen what Sylvanas and her fanatical Forsaken have planned. The Darkspear Trolls are not particularly fond of the Forsaken because of their shaman beliefs, but tolerate them and have learned to trust them in times of war. So now that we have completed this quest, let's go ahead and return to the Arathi Highlands now. So now I want to go on a little bit of an adventure, and I want to go do some quests that, I'm going to be completely honest with you all, I don't entirely remember these quests, and I deliberately did not go onto the wiki to look at them so that this would be a little bit of a new adventure. I'm like 100% positive, oh, there's a courier right there that I spent so long looking for, there's another one, but I'm 100% certain that I have done these quests before, but the only thing that I kind of remember about them is that there's an escort quest coming up, I think, but that might be the retail version of the game, so we're going to explore this together. And I'm also not 100% sure how to get there, but there is a pirate cove over here in the southwestern corner of the Arathi Highlands, so we are going to head over there now. I have a little bit of a memory of there being like a tunnel, but I'm not 100% sure if there's like an entrance to that from here. We do have slow fall, so if we are able to slow fall or like off a cliff like that, except I didn't use a slow fall ability, we might be able to get down there and then like land in the water and like swim in. Otherwise, I think we have to go all the way around to the Thandle Span. I'm not entirely sure, but let's go ahead and start off on an adventure here. So I think my first attempt for getting over here is coming up towards Stromgarde. And I don't see anything through the mountains here, but there might be like a way to just drop off the cliff. So let's go ahead and avoid all these raptors. So I'm over by Stromgarde now. I am on the outside of it, and it looks like there is a clearing through the mountains here. So let's go ahead and continue following this down. I have a feeling this is not going to lead to anywhere that we want to go, but we can use our slow fall ability, which might be beneficial for us, or this might actually be a road that will take us there. We'll see. Okay, this is looking promising because we're going a little downhill here, and it looks like the road leads off southwards here. So, oh, there's a cave right there. So this might be what I'm remembering from like a very long time ago, but I thought it was like over here or something. I'm not sure, but let's go ahead and go into this cave because surely there's nothing bad in here. And then coming out on the other side of it, it looks like we have a shipwreck right there, and we are indeed in the cove, but it looks like we have to swim now. There are some Nagas over there, so let's be a little bit careful of them. I think we can swim across to the other end right here, and then we can run up to them. And then it does look like the Thandle Span is right there, so it looks like there are two general ways to get here. So I just discovered this way from like the north, and then there's also a way from the Thandle Span, because we know that there's like a ramp up the mountain kind of to be able to get into the Arathi Highlands from underneath the Thandle Span, which we did multiple times when we were over there several episodes ago. But we see off in this cove here, there's a shipwreck right there, but there is a ship right there, and let's go ahead and come up to it and see what quests we have to do here. I'm not entirely sure what these quests are, so we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, I think. But we have some people from Booty Bay here, so it looks like maybe these quests here will be good for getting some Booty Bay reputation. Let's go ahead and talk to Lolo Lookout, who says, "Welcome to Father's Cove. Captain O'Brien said we'd only be here for a few hours, just long enough to gather the treasure and get back to Booty Bay, but Lolo thinks that we're going to be here a lot longer than that. We lost the other 2 ships from our formation. Poor Spirit of Silver Pine and Maiden's Folly. On the bottom of the sea they rest now. Lolo suggests you talk to Captain O'Brien if you plan on sticking around here." So let's go ahead and talk to the captain right here. And it looks like we might have some quests up there that unlock after this. And the captain says, "Ahoy, matey, 'twas a horrible mess. Seahorn will have my ship if he finds out what went down. One of the professor's contraptions indicated the lost treasure was near this cove. I brought the Harbinger into dock and signaled for the Spirit of Silver Pine and Maiden's Folly to follow suit. Then the sea rumbled, the tides lowered, and the 2 ships crashed into the reef. It's not just a reef, something's down there. Help my crew out and you'll be rewarded handsomely." So we just unlocked several quests, so let's go ahead and walk around here. We did indeed get some Booty Bay reputation. So deep sea salvage, so we can go ahead and get the charts and logs from the 2 ships. And then we have 2 more quests over here. These look like they are a little bit of a high level quest, and we are only level 37, so we might come back here later. Captain Steelgut wants us to kill 10 Daggerspine Raiders and 3 Daggerspine Sorceresses. And then we have Sunken Treasure. So we need to escort this professor over to the back of the cave, and I think this was the escort quest that I'm remembering, but I don't remember any of these Naga quests here. These are all level 40 quests, so let's go ahead and do this escort quest to kind of test out our strength here, because I'm going to assume we have to kill something. I don't entirely remember, but let's go ahead and follow this professor into the cave here, who says, "Okay, Athos, follow me to the cave where I'll attempt to harness the power of the runestone into these goggles. I discovered this cave on our first day here. I believe the energy in this stone can be used to our advantage. I'll begin drawing energy from the stone. Your job, Athos, is to defend me. This place is cursed. Trust me." So we're walking into this cave here, and we see that there is a runestone right here. So let's go ahead and defend the professor from anything that might come out of it. He begins tinkering with the goggles before the stone. And it looks like there are some water elementals that just came into the cave here. We are Frost Mages, so this isn't going to work out too well for us. But we do have some fire bolts here, so let's go ahead and do our best. And we might just straight up die here. We might have to come back later on. I don't really want to use my health potion here because I don't think it's going to save us either way. But it looks like we did die there, and it looks like we are all the way over here. So I might go ahead and take the L on that quest for now, and we'll go ahead and return there when we are in our 40s and when I have upgraded my Fire Mage. But that was definitely a little bit of an interesting adventure, and I am definitely excited to go back there. But let us abandon this quest, and then let us go work on some other things for the immediate future. And now I want to take some time to talk about a very special mechanic in World of Warcraft, and that is reputation. And we have talked about reputations a lot throughout this series, especially the main alliance reputations of the 4 main cities for the 4 races of the alliance. But there are a bunch of other reputations that we have explored, and there are a bunch that come out in each expansion of the game here on after. So I just want to take some time and talk about everything. So first thing I want to talk about is that I just really enjoy reputations. I don't really do much with them anymore, but back in the day when I played a lot, I spent a lot of time just farming reputation points to get all the way up to Exalted with every single reputation in the game. When it comes to Classic WoW, there aren't too many reputations that you can really just kind of farm. There are a few, and they're decently fun, but looking here in Hillsbrad Foothills, there's kind of 2 reputations that we can look at, and one's not really technically in vanilla, which is the Syndicate. Where the Syndicate is a faction that we have talked about a lot, and they have a counterpart known as the Ravenholt, which is a whole other thing that we might talk about if we ever play a rogue character. But in vanilla WoW, these 2 aren't super important, and they become more important in the Wrath of Lich King because there is a title called the Insane that you can get from getting Exalted Reputation with a bunch of factions in the vanilla world, including all the Goblin towns, and even Honored with the Bloodsail Buccaneers, which is an enemy faction that you can actually gain reputation with. But it's a very, quite literally, insane title to get, and it's a lot of time and commitment and effort in order to get all of this reputation up. and it's actually something that I've never done. Even though I like worked on it a little bit, I never devoted a ton of time to it, and I never got it. But in Arathi Highlands, there's another kind of relevant faction known as the Wild Hammer Clan, which when we get to the hinterlands and Airy Peak, we'll be learning a lot more about these dwarves. But we actually gain reputation by killing the trolls here in the Arathi Highlands. And this is another interesting faction because we don't really get anything from leveling up this faction. And this faction was actually removed in the Burning Crusade, I believe. So it's just like a really random like faction that like doesn't really do anything, but you can like farm reputation for it, and you can raise your reputation, and you don't get anything from it, but it might be a little bit of a fun thing to do. And I just spent some time killing a few syndicate and a few trolls just to get a little bit of silk cloth, and I got a little bit of wool cloth from this too. So while we are on the topic of reputation, I wanted to talk about something kind of special with classic World of Warcraft. And if we come into our reputation tree here, we can see we have all of our reputations, but up here we have our alliance reputation, and most importantly, we have our Stormwind reputation, which earlier in this episode, we actually reached Revered with Stormwind, so we have 230 points into the Revered track, 21,000 possible points that we can get. The maximum reputation that we can get is Exalted, and the next one after Revered is Exalted. So this is kind of like the last step to getting to Exalted reputation is through Revered. And the primary way that people gain reputation is by doing quests. That's basically what we've done this entire Let's Play series, is we have completed quests, and some of our reputation we get from killing mobs as well, but for the most part, all of our reputation, and with Stormwind, 100% of our reputation has come from quests. However, the 4 main alliance and the 4 main horde factions each have an opportunity for you to turn in cloth in order to gain reputation with that specific race. So we are here in Stormwind, and in order to gain some reputation with Stormwind, let's go ahead and come up here. I have 6 stacks of wool cloth in my inventory right now, and we can come up here to the Alliance Cloth Quartermaster, and we can see that we have a donation of wool, a donation of silk, and then I think there is a donation of a rune cloth. It skips over Mage Weave, or there's Mage Weave and rune cloth. I'm not entirely sure, but let's go ahead and take a look at a donation of wool. So we can go ahead and give 3 stacks of wool cloth, 60 total cloth, to this person, and then we can complete this quest, and then we will get 165 reputation, and we also get 650 experience. We would get 150 reputation if we weren't humans. Humans get a little bit extra from this. And I just went and double checked my information, and we can turn in the donation of wool 1 single time, and then we can turn in a donation of silk, and then we can also turn in a donation of Mage Weave. Every time we do that, we get a little bit of experience and some reputation, and then once we do all 3 for a specific faction, so like with Stormwind here, we can unlock the donation of rune cloth, which we can turn in once to get some experience and some reputation, and then afterwards we can continue turning in rune cloth over and over, and we can get as much reputation with Stormwind as we want. So the wool cloth here added an extra 60. I thought I could turn it in multiple times, but it's only once until you get up to rune cloth. But that's no matter, because we can come to Ironforge here, and we can talk to the Alliance Cloth Quartermaster here in Ironforge, go to a donation of wool, and we can give her our last 60 wool cloth that we have in our inventory. We can complete the quest, get 165 reputation with Ironforge, and 650 experience. So now our reputation with Ironforge and Stormwind are just very slightly increased a little bit more, but we can complete all those quests, and you can farm rune cloth, and then we could get our reputation with them all the way up to maximum. So we can get our maximum discount at vendors, which would be very nice. So now I want to do something a little bit different, and it's for the first time in the series, I'm actually in retail WoW, because I want to talk about my history with reputations a little bit. And I thought that I would sit outside of South Shore in retail WoW. This is what South Shore looks like in the modern version of World of Warcraft. But that is besides the point right now. So if you come into our character panel here, we can go ahead and come down to reputation. This is my main character that I played from starting in like the mid to late Cataclysm all the way through the end of Mist of Pandaria. So I had other characters beforehand. I had 2 mains beforehand. This is my 3rd main, but this is the one that I probably played the most and completed the most stuff in. And we can see that it is currently the Dragonflight expansion, and on this character I haven't done anything in Shadowlands, and I barely done anything in Battle for Azeroth or in Legion. I've done a little bit of stuff in Warlords of Draenor, but not a whole lot. So as far as reputation goes there, I haven't done much. But if we come to the last expansion I played, Mr. Pandaria, I have done quite a bit where I have gotten exalted with almost every single one of the reputations here. And I think there's like one or two more reputations in Mr. Pandaria that released after I quit the game, so I don't even have them like discovered here. But then we have like a really interesting mechanic with Mr. Pandaria is that you can be like friends with people on like the farmstead thing that was introduced in the game, and then as Nat Pago as well, which for some reason I'm a stranger with Nat Pago, even though I'm exalted with the Anglers. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really remember any of this at all. The farmstead was like an okay thing, and I remember when you became like best friends with people, you got like special items which like added things to your farmstead, which was kind of cool. But as far as like the main reputations go, the only one that I really remember a lot of is, I believe it's the Golden Lotus, which was basically like a daily quest area in Mr. Pandaria. And I really remember with that expansion, basically the entire like in-game and like the open world revolved around doing dailies. So like each one of these had like dailies connected to them, or almost every single one of them. I think Shadow Panasod's a raid reputation, and then I don't remember all of these, but I'm sure a few of them are also raid reputations as well. But pretty much one of like my biggest issues with Mrs. Pandaria at the time was that like every single thing revolved around doing like dailies for reputations, which I enjoy, but the entire expansion was that, like archaeology, and then raids. That's everything that was in Mr. Pandaria. And I've never been a big raider in World of Warcraft, so that part never really grabbed me. And then I just got bored of the dailies. And then there was a bunch of other things going on in and around Mr. Pandaria in World of Warcraft and outside of World of Warcraft that eventually made me like quit the game after that and not return until Classic released. But going down to the Cataclysm, we have a bunch of similar things here where there's a bunch of reputations here. I don't really remember too many of these except for this one, the Ramkahin, or however you pronounce it. I remember doing reputation for them. I also remember, I believe it's Avengers of Highjaw or Guardians of Highjaw. I think these two are like interconnected, where the Avengers is like the raid and then the Guardians is like the open road like questing stuff that was added at the same time, I think. Or maybe this was like the open world reputation that was released when the expansion came out, but then they added onto it. But I just remember they added some really fun dailies when the Firelands, I believe it's called, raid came out, and I had a ton of fun with that. But coming into Wrath Lich King, I absolutely love these reputations, and actually funnily enough, I never got exalted with the Kaliak, which isn't that hard to get, and I actually haven't finished the Sholazar base and stuff either. So I've actually been doing this in the Wrath Lich King Classic version of the game right now, but I never did it back in the day for some reason. But everything else I got to exalted, and I had a ton of fun with it. I remember Argent Crusade with like the Argent Tournament Grounds was a ton of fun. And then the Tuskar here is actually one of my favorite factions in the game, and I absolutely love their dailies on like their quest hubs and stuff like that, even though I never got exalted with them. Then coming down to the Burning Crusade, it's a little bit more hazy here, where I haven't gotten every single one to exalted, but I've gotten some to revered, some to friendly here, and yeah. So the Burning Crusade, just like Wrath Lich King, I really enjoy the reputations in this expansion. A lot of these are raid ones, which like, you know, whatever. But one that's really, really fun is the Netherwing reputation, which is a really fun daily quest hub that I had a ton of fun doing. I think you only had to get to review to get like the final like reward from that, so that's why I'm not exalted with them. But the Shatari Skyguard is also similar to Netherwing, which is not as fun for me, but still a bunch of fun quests that you can do. And then all these other ones I just enjoy very much. And then coming down to Classic, we have all of these, which a standout one for me is Timbermaw Hold, which I had a ton of fun doing that way back in the day. It's completely different in like Cataclysm and so forth, but it's one of my favorite reputations from back then. And then we have Horde, which we have a bunch of stuff with future expansions with like Mr. Pandaria and the Cataclysm added on. The Bragar Arena, which I don't really know how this works anymore. I think it like exists, but I had a ton of fun with this. I think it was Mr. Pandaria when it came out. But then we have the 3 PvP factions for Frostwolf Clan. Pretty much everyone who's played Outtrack Valley a few times has that exalted. And then the Defilers and Warsong Outriders is very hard to get these two exalted. You have to play a lot. And the Steam Needle Cartel, I haven't done too much with them. I kind of just completed all the quests, but never really farmed them. But with the Arathi Highlands expansion, we got achievements. So if we come in here, I have 13,080 achievement points, which back when I quit was actually quite a bit of achievement points, but nowadays it's not that much compared to like a ton of other people. But if you come into the reputations page here, we see on like the main page here, I have gotten all of these reputations. I got the 55 exalted reputations on March 19th, 2013. And we can see when I got all these other ones here, I've gotten a total of 59 reputations to exalted. But in Dragonflight, nothing. In Shadowlands, nothing. Battle for Azeroth, nothing. Legion, nothing. Draenor, nothing. Pandaria, things changed a little bit because I played a lot of Pandaria. And we see here we have the Shadow Panda Sought and then the Emperor reputation here. I don't have either of these at exalted. If you come into Cataclysm, same thing. I don't have Avengers of Hyjal exalted. We saw that. Arathi Highlands, it's kind of the same thing here, but there's like a very special thing where you have to get exalted with the Frenzy Heart tribe and the Oracles, and you can do like one at a time. And then you switch to the other faction and you become enemies with the faction you were previously. And then we have an achievement to get a Grand Ice Mammoth, which I'm going to Google right now. And apparently it's 8,000 gold, and I'm probably never going to spend gold in this game again, so let's do something a little weird here. I'm going to go ahead and use my wormhole to go to Northrend. This is like a major spoiler to like the future of the game, by the way. But as we head there, we have the Burning Crusade, which I completely forgot to mention, the Shattered Sun Offensive. I absolutely love that question hub, but it can come down here, and we don't have these ones at Exalted. And then Classic, I don't have the Hydraxian Waterlords at Exalted, which is actually like really tough to get. You have to do like Molten Core like 200 times in order to get it, which is like 200 weeks of just doing a Classic raid. So we have this Quartermaster right here. Let's go ahead and buy from him. And if we come through here, we can go ahead and buy this. I already have that one. 8,000 gold. I just got another reputation achievement in 2023. So that's fun. But one additional thing is that on the Classic WoW subreddit, which I was actually one of the first like 300 people to join the subreddit, I was really excited when Classic was announced. But I actually made a post over 5 years ago talking about reputation and Classic WoW. And this is what I said that I was excited to grind out reputation for again, and I'll post a link to this old thread down in the description. But I said I was excited for the Darkmoon Fair, I was excited for Orgrimmar, because at the time I was planning on playing a Tauren and I really wanted a wolf mount. And then I was excited for Timbermaw Hold because of nostalgia. And then I was also excited for the Booty Bay and Steamweedle Cartel reputations because I really love the vibe of Goblin Towns and Stranglethorn Vale. And looking at the comments, one person said they were super excited for AV reputation, especially because of the wolf mount that you could get. Someone said they were excited for the Bloodsail Buccaneers because they could get a parrot. Someone else said that they were excited for the Timbermaw Hold. And then a bunch of people said other similar things as well. Pretty much everyone was excited for all the reputations except for one person who said none. But TLDR of this entire section of this video here, I really enjoy reputations in World of Warcraft, and I really wish that this reputation mechanic was in Guild Wars 2. I have like a bunch of thoughts about that maybe I'll talk about at some point, but that's more of a Guild Wars 2 thing, a completely different game. And while I enjoyed it in Classic, I really enjoyed it in the Burning Crusade and the Arathi Highlands here, which I just spoiled a little bit of that, and a little bit of Cataclysm as well. But I don't think I'm going to be playing Cataclysm at all, and this is just a little bit of a sneak peek to Arathi Highlands if I do ever end up playing Wrath of the Lich King. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and call it good here. I hope y'all enjoyed watching this episode as much as I enjoyed playing through it, and I hope y'all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the world of Azeroth. Goodbye.